Political patience, that's what we're asked to have. Patience. Results continue to roll in from Tuesday's midterm, and so much still to break down, so much on the line. And who better than Caroline Heldman, professor of critical theory and social justice at Occidental College, to break it all down for us. Good morning, Caroline.
Happy Thursday, Giselle.
You say that with a little extra oomph in your voice this morning. Happy Thursday indeed. So pollsters said to expect a red tsunami. What we got was more of a drizzle. The House and Senate, as you know, still hanging in the balance. What do you make of it this morning?
Well, Giselle, if you've been watching us on this show for the past 6 months, you know we've been saying really four things. One is that this is a very unpredictable race because of Roe, and it shouldn't be. It should have been a wave, but it's unpredictable. The second thing is that we wouldn't know on Election Day. The third thing is that the House of Representatives is likely to go Republican, which is the case. And the fourth thing is that the Senate is anyone's guess, and that is precisely where we are. So, this is more like election week rather than election day, given that so many more Americans now cast their ballots through mail-in, which simply takes longer.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of patience these days, but it's the margin of the majority of the Republicans in the House that's really the question right now. And as you said, yes, the economy, yes, inflation, top concerns, but abortion rights brought women, it appears, and young voters scoring major wins in Kentucky, Michigan, North Carolina, and of course, California. Sticking it to the Supreme Court?
Absolutely. We weren't sure how much the rage at having a fundamental right overturned would drive Democrats to the polls. We certainly saw this with young voters. In fact, voters who are under age 30, so this would be, Gen Z and young millennials, have a 28-point Democratic advantage. Compare that with folks who are over 45, who tend to vote about 13% more Republican. So just incredible turnout amongst young people. These are massive generations. If you simply look at the numbers, they typically don't turn out to vote very often, but as we saw in 2020 and now in this election, that they're certainly delivering. And I will say, I think Republicans may have overplayed their hand with abortion. I think we may see a political realignment as we are seeing now and perhaps again in 2024.
And, for a later conversation, really puts the media in the spotlight, too, focusing only, on the bad news and not taking a more balanced approach in terms of the pollsters, right? But bad night for Trump-backed election deniers. Was this midterm a rebuke of extremism and the former president?
It does appear that way. I will say that Donald Trump is in a bit of trouble in that he promoted candidates who did not do well and perhaps gave the balance of the Senate to Democrats. That still remains to be seen. But Mitch McConnell has been angry about this for about half a year because we could see the writing on the wall that Trump had backed, extremist candidates who would not do very well. It's not to say that none of them won their races, but the fact that we had a free and fair election without incident yesterday because the wins in most of these races against extremist candidates were enough that it simply wasn't something that was possible to contest it. That's a really good sign for our democracy.
Yet, we have days ahead still to see if that holds true. So a not so great night for Republicans as they were expecting, but a great night for Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis. He is now the front runner for 2024.
Absolutely. Double digits for DeSantis. He took the podium and said, basically, I'm running for the presidency without saying that. He is going to likely be locked in a very contentious race with Donald Trump in 2024. That would be my guess.
And speaking of Donald Trump, he is largely being blamed for this red drizzle. Does this delay his announcement to run for president?
I think it should. He certainly is working the DeSantis camp and trying to get them to not announce. Meanwhile, he is being worked by other members of the Republican Party. It is interesting to me that, it wasn't enough for the party to distance themselves with a violent insurrection or mishandling of classified documents. But the fact that he is costing elections and perhaps a balance of the Senate by really promoting Mehmet Oz and Herschel Walker, if he costs Republicans the Senate, they will not forgive him.
Well, Mitch McConnell called that early on. Even Fox News, Rupert Murdoch is turning on the president. Take a look at, I'm sure you saw it, but this New York Post headline, Trumpty Dumpty couldn't build a wall or put the party back together again. That is the headline. There you go. What does this tell you?
It tells me that the most powerful media broker, extremist right-wing magnet is turning on Trump. And that means something, because if you look at Trump's ascendancy, Rupert Murdoch played a major role in that. Trump was the titular head of the birther movement who got so much free airtime on Fox News that it elevated his status and gave him legitimacy as a candidate. So to have Rupert Murdoch be turning on him now, and also many other Republican leaders, I think Trump is really in a bad spot. But more importantly, the Republican Party has to figure out who they are moving forward.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Kevin McCarthy. He's expected to become Speaker if they do take the majority. He'll have to deal with the extremist wing of that party to do so. How's he going to unify that? What is he going to have to compromise?
Well, they won't be able to pass much of anything, so it will mostly be unification around probably like partisan investigations and partisan grandstanding against Biden's agenda. That would be my guess. It's possible that Lauren Boebert will not be there, so he may have one of his extremist members gone. But I'm guessing that Kevin McCarthy will probably, if he's smart about this strategically, he will weaponize them and use them to keep folks who are still very much that Trump base, keep them involved with the party while also appealing to a wider swath of Republicans who are done with Trump.
Yeah, so much at stake, still so much to be told on this whole story. Okay, the mayor's race here in Los Angeles, still too close to call, as are so many of the congressional races. But Rick Caruso right now currently leads Karen Bass by just a couple of points. What does that tell you?
Well, I actually think it's still very much up in the air. So if you look at the kind of three waves of how voting comes in, the early mail-in ballots tend to be overwhelmingly Democratic and older Democrats. Day of voting is Republican, so that's going to help Rick Caruso. And then the later mail-in ballots are younger Democratic voters who should be bread and butter for Karen Bass. So even though Rick Caruso is ahead, this is still anyone's race.
All right, I do have to ask you before I let you go. Former Vice President Mike Pence, he's coming out with his memoir the same day Donald Trump is expected to announce, confirming all the things we already knew about January 6th. But he's getting a lot of criticism for not coming out earlier. What do you think?
Well, Mike Pence has always been between a rock and a hard place, in that he had to appeal to the party base, and that's Trump's folks. And so on that horrible day, I felt for him. I mean, I think the president of the United States tweeted something that put his life in danger. So it hasn't been an easy road for Pence, and I hope people have some empathy for him around that.
Well, you used to say buckle up is going to be a bumpy night. It's been a bumpy week. This is a season, not just one election night anymore. Caroline Heldman, thank you so much for all of your insights always. Professor of Critical Theory and Social Justice at Occidental College. We thank you always on this Thursday for being with us.
Thank you, Giselle.
Have a great weekend. All right, everyone, as we head out to break, take a look at beautiful Topanga Beach in all its glory. You need a little bit of a respite, a little bit of tranquility, a little bit of hope in the world. Take a look in your own backyard. That's what that is right there, hope.